Good morning. I had planned on streaming in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but our user Roberto was having problems with getting its Valve Index controllers to work with X-Plane. So I decided that I would, instead of flying today, I'll do a little bit of information as to how I have my index controllers working with X-Plane. I happen to be using an HP Reverb G2 and with Valve Index controllers. Roberto is using a Vive with Valve Index controllers. So it kind of goes to show that you can use the index controllers with quite a few different headsets. But basically, as far as SteamVR and X-Plane is concerned, they're all seen the same. Even though I'm using, like I said, my G2, when SteamVR and X-Plane think I'm using Index. I'm using Index controllers. So I'll just quickly, I'm going to come back to this, but quickly I'll just go click on joystick. And so I'll go down on one of the Valve Index controllers. There is a left and a right, but in X-Plane they don't show up that way. So I got to figure out which one. This one should be my right one. Yeah, that's my right. So this is my right one. So I'm pulling the trigger down. You can see it triggers. And when the bindings from SteamVR are done correctly, you should see this. You should see these 5. So the button to the bottom, the button to the bottom. If I push that down, you'll see that that's button 1. The other button, the upper button, I push that one down, that's this button. Also, if I squeeze, so the grip is also that button. And that's all due to the fact that how I have SteamVR, the bindings for the Valve Index controllers, that's all related to how I have that binding done. That I went in and basically changed the default from what SteamVR had for X-Plane. I went in and I've modified that, and I'll show that. So if I go over to the other one, I think this one, yeah. So this is my left one, so you can see left trigger button. The button to the bottom of the controller. I push that in, then the upper one, that's the menu button. Same way as if I squeeze on the grip, that's the same button. So that button and the grip are basically mapped from SteamVR the same. So I'm going to do this a little bit backwards. So I'm going to jump into the cockpit. So new flight, where are we going? Oh, okay. So we're gonna end up in England, in the UK. Start flight. So it takes just a little bit of time, and so what else I can do is while I'm waiting for X-Plane to load here, if I click on the little button, the reset button, if I push down on that, that basically gets me to the SteamVR window. And then I can click on desktop. So now I can basically watch, as X-Plane is loading, I can basically watch what's going on here. So that's kind of a cool feature. The other thing that you can do, we're about done. I'll go back to that. So if I just click on here now, playing, return the game, and let me get a couple of my. So I showed that I have my the lower button on my controller mapped to button 1. So if I push down on that, that's plane command. So
Heading hold on.
So plane command can be used with voice activation, but I've chosen not to do that, so that I have to hold down on this button for it to basically listen. The other button I have, on the left one, is I have my button to command, so I can turn that on and off also. And that's what I have my 2 buttons mapped to. And so that's kind of how I interact with the 2 buttons in the VR controllers. So something else that kind of come about with the G2 controllers is how does the laser beam work? So on the, I'm holding my my index controller in a pretty natural position, which hopefully with my webcam you can see the position that it's in. In the cockpit, the top of that, where the thumbstick is and the buttons are, is about level. So if I pull on the trigger, that beam comes straight out of this controller. If I did the same thing with the G2 controller, the beam would come out at an angle. It would be angled up. So when you come in, so to actually get this to so I go straight in, and it would, but because the controller is actually being displayed kind of like this. So when you come into things, you know, it's unnatural. So that's kind of why on 11.53R1 they made it where you can configure that angle. So let's jump out of here, and we're going to go into Steam. So I'm going to hit the little recess button on my index controller, and I'm going to click on here that says controller bindings. So when you come into here, you know, it says manage controller bindings for X-Plane and active custom. So you can see X-Plane configuration for index controller from Sparker in VR. Well, that's who I am. So I'm going to click on choose another. Give it a second to kind of line up. Okay, so I've shared my bindings. So I published them on the in the workhouse, and so I've shared them, and so you can see here that it says my shared bindings, and then it said shared bindings from Sparker in VR. Default bindings values for legacy apps using index controller. Removed any functions for the touchpad. So the touchpad on here I've disabled in X-Plane so that it doesn't do anything, because it would conflict with the thumbstick. And I've also reversed the A and the B buttons. So in X-Plane, when I push down on the bottom button, the A button, in X-Plane it's the B button. And when I push on the B button in X-Plane, it's the A button. I have reversed them. So if you wanted to use my bindings, if you just click on activate, you would basically view them. That would become your current binding. If you click on activate, that would become your current binding. But you can also, if you wanted to just see it, you can just click on view. So I'm viewing shared binding from Sparker. So when you come over here, let me look here a minute. Okay, so the system button, that's the recess button. I didn't touch that one. Trigger button, I didn't touch either. So when you look at the trackpad is none. So basically I took all of this stuff and just made it none. So it is no longer active. Then we went to the thumbstick. I think that's all pretty much default. So, B button. So, the B button I have mapped to the grip button. And I've basically done this in SteamVR. So, the B button, the upper button, you can see the B button. And then the A button, I have that mapped to the right application menu button. And then the grip is a grip button. And I think that's it. So, and basically the left and the right. So if we go over here, use button, so this one says right system button, this is left. Left trigger, you know, all that kind of mimics. Same way joystick, left, right. B button, right grip. Left grip, left, you know, so right, left. So I'm going to get back out of here. Back out. Back out. Okay. So I'm just going to click on close. And click down here. Return the game. So I'm back in the game. And so that was basically how you get there in VR. Now, I'm going to show you how to get there on the desktop, but I'm going to do it in VR because that's how my stream's set up. So if I click on the little recess button and I click on this here, desktops. So now we're on the desktop. So if I go over here, and if you're in VR and you take off your headset and you're looking at your desktop just like this, X-Plane's in VR, and so if you come over here and click on this corner button right there, so that brings up this. So if I click on settings and I click on controllers and I click on manage controller bindings. So basically the same thing that I saw in VR, you will see on your desktop. Sometimes it's a little easier to go ahead and do it from your desktop, but you have to be in VR. X-Plane has to be in VR for it to say X-Plane here, and for it to say it's going to manage the controller bindings, that this will be defaulted as X-Plane. So you have to kind of be in this place. So I did exactly what I did in over in SteamVR. And you have to be patient for it to like load. So exactly the same. It's what we saw. You will see on your desktop. So it is it's just exactly the same. So I will click on back. I'm just going to close this. Close this. And close this. Okay. So that was SteamVR in VR. SteamVR on the desktop, and now we will go back to so when you pick that binding, when you're in VR in X-Plane, sorry, and you go to the to joysticks, then you should see pretty much what I'm seeing here. By default, this top one will probably say none. by default. I changed the mapping of that, and so the top one there will say default because it's a spare button. Same way, so this is on the right, and we'll go over to the left one. The left one the same way. The button 1, it should say none. So you can go ahead and click on edit. Basically, search for whatever you want to use that button for. When you're done, you click on apply, and then it'll basically use that. So I click on done. Back here. So trying to think. Yeah. Yeah, so that pretty much, I think I'll probably go back over into SteamVR one more time, and to try to make sure that I've got this covered correctly. But like I said, once you have the SteamVR binding, you know, basically use my SteamVR binding for the valve index. I had a couple of bindings over there that said something about the HP reverb, but the point is it's irrelevant. If you're using valve index controllers, use that binding. Now, if you want to modify that binding to do something differently, go for it. I mean, but my binding, I would call it as kind of a baseline to get you up and running. Once you're up and running, then you can better understand how all this stuff works. And the most important part is, jump over in the plane. The most important part is that this actually all works. So if your buttons aren't working, you know, then like if I'm going to click on the upper button here, the upper button's going to bring this flower menu up. If those buttons aren't working, you can't get to this menu. So if you can't get to the menu, you're really limited as to what you can do. So then you would have to like turn on the VR mouse to do anything. And I frankly do not use the VR mouse. It's not turned on. When I was setting up some of these bindings and stuff, I had it turned on, just because same thing. The buttons weren't working, so I had to find a way. And but right now, no. So I go ahead and so if I click on advanced menu, you know, then all that shows up. So, but the way mine's set up with the valve index is if I squeeze the grip, the menu will show up, and then if I squeeze it again, it goes away. And that's why I remapped the upper button. I remapped it to be the same because it's further away. It's harder to hit without hitting the lower button. And the lower button's a free button, basically a button that I can use. So that I use it for...
no command to confirm.
Oh, no. Okay. No.
LNAV on.
LNAV off.
Master switch already off.
Good. But so that's kind of how I set up my controllers, you know, is that way. So either one. So if I squeeze on my left one, the menu shows up. On the right one, the menu shows up. If I squeeze on the left with this menu showing up, it's not going to show up. It has to be off. So I can't have menus on both of them. Only one at a time. So we'll jump. Trying to think the right way. I'm going back in VR. So we'll go back from. So I basically clicked on. You can see it. That reset button. I clicked on that. That got me to here. Then controller bindings, and choose another. Patient. So this is the current binding I am using, which is similar to this binding. It's named a little differently, but But as far as its function, it does the same thing. And you see it's dated today, so 4/11/2021. So, because I basically shared this morning. So I had a couple of other ones. I wanted to get rid of the HP reverb in the title, so it isn't confusing to people that this is for a Valve Index controller, period. Nothing. So it says my current controller is an Index controller. And the same way we can click on view here. And basically you can look. So before you even click on activate, you can kind of look at what it's doing. You know, you can see here the trackpad is all none. And on the left and the right. And we're using the grip button here. So back here. So let me look close. Trying to think of anything else. Nope. Return the game. Okay. So one probably other thing is the way since I stream VR, it's kind of important for me to have the most important thing is to have a chat window. And how I go about doing that is because we're on SteamVR, I use a program called OVR Toolkit. And basically that's what allows my chat window here. This window here, I usually use it for Pilot ATC, but I don't have it open right now because I'm not going to be flying. And then I have my desktop. So my whole desktop is basically in my VR cockpit. For streaming in VR, it's kind of handy to be able to kind of like look over and go, yeah, am I actually streaming? So it's kind of important to be able to kind of like glance over there and go, oh, yeah, it does say that I'm live. so because in VR you're like so limited as to basically what you can do and what you can see. So so I've found that it is probably the greatest tool I've found to help me be able to stream and kind of keep track of all the things that that you basically need to if you're you know, streaming VR and flying. So that's kind of a very important tool that I've pretty much, I think, when I started streaming VR, that was a tool that once I found it, I went, oh, this will work great. So but the only problem is that on X-Plane it's not a problem because you're using SteamVR anyhow for X-Plane. But Microsoft Flight Simulator natively does not. And but I've been because I use basically the same setup for Microsoft Flight Simulator that I use SteamVR with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It has been a bit of a challenge, but I have it working like fairly well. I really get probably about the same frames in X-Plane as I do in Microsoft Flight Simulator using SteamVR. So, because I tried to use Windows Mixed Reality, and the tools that were available were way too limiting for me. I could never, with Windows Mixed Reality, I never could get more than one window in the cockpit. It would not allow that. So I have my chatty window. I have a window that is not being used, but it's still a window. And I have my desktop window. I have 3 windows in the cockpit. And besides, I can also like bring X-Plane windows in. So plugins, have a tab. So this isn't these other windows here are overlay windows. This is an X-Plane plugin window. But I can have all of them kind of in the cockpit, and but Windows Mixed Reality would allow me to have the Microsoft Flight Simulator plugin windows, but I only could have one basically from the desktop. Where a lot of people are doing, they're having the whole desktop in the cockpit, and that I like to have them individualized. So, but okay, that's a little weird. Not sure what that is. Got something. On my chatty window, there was a little square box on it. I was like, I wasn't sure where the heck that was coming from. So, alrighty. Trying to think if I have anything else. Nah, probably not. Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I hopefully covered everything. I'll just jump back into the hangar. And so when the SteamVR bindings are correct, basically I'm using mine. So then all this stuff should work. So in other words, the axes, those should work. Trigger, that should work. All that stuff should work. Then I think we have an extra one that's just none. So, but that's all related to having the having correct bindings in SteamVR. And one more time, I'll jump back. And since I've shared my bindings, anybody, this is the only thing I don't know. I'm not sure of. My version of X-Plane is from X-Plane. I think I've heard that if you're on SteamVR, that you'll see my shared bindings. But I haven't really had a strong confirmation of that. So that would be great feedback for me, is that if you're on SteamVR, can you see my shared bindings? If you can, I'm not so sure how we get over that hurdle. But it would be really good to know, because like I said, I don't use SteamVR, or I don't use Steam. So I would think that because we're in SteamVR, is that's shared between the people that are using native X-Plane and Steam X-Plane. I would hope that both users are able to actually see this. So back. Cool. So, yeah, so like right now, we jump out of cockpit. Go roam around here. Go find the tug. Tug's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that you can actually do this. Yeah. So, tug's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. The fact X-Plane like lets you do this, just kind of like roam around. I mean, just look at things, and but more to the point. So right now, I have my SteamVR super sampling at 50%. So I have the general super sampling for the HP Reverb G2 at 100%, but I have the per game, I have that at 50. So I want to go look at the tow bar thing here. This is I find this is pretty amazing. I mean, you kind of like look at the amount of detail in this thing here. You know, it's pretty incredible. That's like rendered like quite well, and I mean, you can actually like look at the nuts on the ends of the bolts. You know, this is some pretty cool stuff. You know, that basically it's just part of the game. You know, I mean, so but it's kind of neat. You can actually. But the fact that I'm able to just teleport, you know, let's go over and look at a baggage guy. Look at the back side of him. Backside. You know, that basically, and I don't think I can jump up on top of him, no. No, and that's not allowed. Be kind of cool if you could. Kind of cool if you could jump in the seat, you know, but you can't. But, it's just kind of the things that us VR X-Plane users, I go over to the GPU, that we just take for granted. But we've been using, get over underneath it, spin around. There it is. I was looking for the panel. Yeah. You know, like that part of it, that's not rendered very well at all, you know, but I mean, where on that tow bar on that tug, that was rendered like just awesomely, you know, so it's kind of interesting. But no, that we, as X-Plane VR users, I mean, I've been using it for over 3 years. It was pretty rough in the beginning. It was really rough in the beginning. But also you had headsets that were rough. I mean, that were, wow. There was a lot of screen door going on. And, but as those have improved, so has X-Plane, you know, so I'm certainly hoping that Microsoft Flight Simulator, the developers spend the amount of time needed to bring the VR experience at least on par with what we currently can experience in X-Plane. I'm not a person that is, this is better, that's better. No. I want both of them to succeed, absolutely. And, but the same token, if we could, quite frankly, those clouds, I'm in X-Plane, and those clouds aren't looking that bad. You know, I mean, they're okay. You know, I mean, so each one of them could use improvements, no doubt about it. You know, but I just know personally, this VR experience where I gotta get myself in the right place because I'm a little too close to my desk. I get straightened up. Okay. Yep, that's my desk right there. So if I put myself in the proper place, and this is default X-Plane VR. So basically what I've done is I've positioned myself, I pushed my chair back away from the desk, about where I would be if I had a yoke. And I'm taking my controller and I'm touching the edge of my desk. So basically what I've done is I brought this VR instrument panel, I brought it closer to me. So basically that panel is in front of my desk. What does it allow me to do? It allows me to touch all of this. Never touching my desk. Because I am in front of my desk. So everything here with my touch controllers, I have access to. Knobs, flaps, trim wheel, fuel cutoff, fuel selector, all that stuff, because of how I have positioned myself in relationship to my desk. And when I fly, I basically put my yoke on my desk, clamp it onto my desk, and I adjust myself the same way. I do the same thing in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I have voice commands that allow me to move myself in and out, up and down. I do that all with voice. So I don't have to find the joystick button. No, I just move up, move down, move back, move forward. I basically do it all with voice commands. And in VR, you don't have to like remember what button was that moved me up and down. You just need to remember some voice commands and basically position yourself. But I do the very same thing, where I basically, and I don't have my yoke here right now, my physical yoke. So normally the face of my yoke, I want that to be behind this here, so that the only thing I have to worry about is if I'm like right here, I'll hit the shaft of the yoke, and if I'm up in this region, because my yoke would be up above my desk, so if I'm in this region, I may touch my yoke, but generally I can get to these knobs, all of these, without any effort. And also, as far as I'm concerned, one of the more important VR implementations that X-Plane has done is when I move this controller close and it highlights, not only does it highlight, but I feel it in my controller. So when I going in here, I can actually feel it. I can feel it so I can actually like blindly move over, and I can feel it when it's here. The same notion, I'm going to pull the trigger, then I'm going to rotate. So I'm rotating the controller, and that OBS there is moving. The whole time I'm rotating that, the controller is vibrating. So it basically knows that I am moving. If I hold it steady, it doesn't vibrate as much. I rotate it back. So you can basically tell when you're like turning, that you're actually doing something. The other OBS, same way. Knobs are the same way. Let me plug some power on. So if I come over here, so if I click on here, I can feel it when I touch it. So I click on it, that does a flip. So if I go on the bigger knob, so I'm taking the 127, I'm going to turn that down, 2, 6, 5, 4, 4, and then this is 600, 500. But I can like very easily like dial in a frequency. But I have plane command, so I also could just say set COM 1 121.35.
COM 1 set to 121.35.
So I also could do that. In VR, sometimes it's easier. It depends what you're doing. If you got time, you can do it this way. But there's more than one option to be able to do this. So plane command is like, I would never fly in VR and X-Plane without plane command. There's no way. But most stuff I don't. Some stuff like that I do. I use plane command. But like for flaps, nope. Trim, nope. I use touch controller for my flaps, for my trim, for my throttle, for my mixture, all my lights. I use the VR controllers for all of that, because to me it seems intuitive. I hear people like, I want gloves. Okay, well, how do gloves work? Gloves mean that you would have to have a physical cockpit. And my goal is I can fly in, I normally only fly in a 172, so it's not as big a deal. But I could also fly in a different airplane and I won't need a new cockpit. I just need a virtual one, and basically it works. So, so that's kind of why I kind of have the views that I do. It's for that reason. But, so I think we're probably pretty good. So I should power back off here. And like I said, I can feel this, and then I just hold the trigger, move it down, just like you would in real life. Just same way as this switch. Just move it up, hold it, down, down. Just like you would actually do it with your finger. You know, I do it with a touch controller. And the same way as here. You know, you would grab it, so I grab it by holding the trigger down, and then I rotate, just like you would grabbing it with your finger and turning it. I personally think it's intuitive. Maybe not to everybody, but I certainly think this is as intuitive an experience in VR as I've seen implemented. But I have a limited experience. So I have X-Plane, I have Microsoft Flight Simulator. Trying to do that with a mouse in VR, I'm way better at it, but it's nowhere near like I set heading bugs all the time for when I'm going to land. So I just come in here, rotate. Doing that with a mouse in Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's nowhere near that quick. I basically have to hold it over there and then hold down on the mouse button, make sure I've got the arrow on the right side, and wait for it to move to the position, as opposed to just moving it to the position I need it to be. Way quicker, and to me more intuitive. But we'll have to see how this all works out. Alrighty, enough rambling on for me. I'm gonna call it a day, and basically, my biggest goal was just trying to kind of showing off findings for the index controllers, and just a little bit of VR. Sparker in VR's view of proper VR implementation in a cockpit. Bill's out. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the future. Bye-bye.